Hey y'all. Happy whatever day of the week it is.
Happy Monday that this comes out because we know you're loyal listeners and you waited till midnight to push play and listen to our voices. Please listen to us.
And to see our video.
Yeah.
We're kind of twins today, low-key. Lex be trying to match me.
I do, because I just have all basic things. And so this basic black dress is what y'all get today. But watch the video to see how we look, because that's also another way for us to get more views.
And we have some exciting news. Lex, tell them what's up.
So we have decided to...
That was a drum roll.
Let me know.
Damn, that was a drum roll. I'm sorry.
Roll.
Shit. I'll be drumming fast.
Right. So we're like, all right, we appreciate all our listeners. We see that anytime we talk about apps we like or tools that we use, that you guys really use them, and that you look at that and then you let us know how you like things and you recommend other things. And so we put together a nice little one sheet of some of our top favorite things. And I say things because it's not just apps, it's programs, other stuff that we really like, that we really use day to day. That's just for you, our listeners. So if you're listening to this, if you want to check out the PDF, go to carliescouch.com, and at the bottom, it should say, get the resource list, and click on there, put in your information, your email address, and we will send it right over to you. Yeah. It's that easy.
And I'm excited because some of these resources are super dope that I didn't even know about, that apparently Lex been holding out on me.
Sometimes, when you're using stuff every day, you don't really think about people not knowing. But you're right, because even things like the time trackers and stuff, I've had people recently tell me, from years ago, when they saw that, they're like, yeah, you're the reason why I had started doing XYZ. So I think it is cool to really think about it. And sometimes it's hard to even make these kind of lists, because it's like, all right, this seems basic to me, I don't know what to put. But then you really just put things that you really use the most. And so we put something together that should be really helpful, really useful. So again, get the spreadsheet, or not the spreadsheet, get the resource list and tell other people to listen to the podcast, get them to put their email in there so they can get the resource list as well. Yeah. And also so you can get our weekly email anyway. That just gives you a quick recap of what we have going on for the week. You can get to see the video, first one to see what the topic is, and everything else. So go ahead and get on the email list if you aren't already. If you are, we appreciate you.
We appreciate
you. Loyal. We got a few people on there.
No, we do. No, I'm not sleep. No, our email list is growing, and our YouTube. Yeah, we have 131 subscribers now.
Yeah, share that thing, like that thing, subscribe. Don't just be listening on the sidelines like a little ghost.
No creeping, just
right. You don't
interact with us. We be talking back. We leave comments back. We reply.
I know. I remember at the first couple episodes, people was commenting on the episodes. You could comment on it on the website, on everything. So do not be afraid to hit us up. It don't got to be just DMs, because y'all do be hitting me on the DMs, and I appreciate that, knowing y'all listen. But let everybody know. You don't got to hide it.
We appreciate you.
We do.
So what are we talking about today?
So today we are talking about something that statistically it says about 70% of people at some point in their career face. And that is imposter syndrome.
And that's actually even higher amongst women and people of color.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense to me.
100%.
So we're going to talk about what that is and what that can look like, what that looks like for us, and ways to deal with it, move through it, process it, and get rid of it.
So the technical definition for imposter syndrome is the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills.
So in layman's term, imposter syndrome is when you don't think you deserve what you have, or you're always afraid. I think it's more of this. You're always afraid of being found out. Like, oh man, what if somebody figures out I really don't know what I'm doing here, or that I don't belong in this job, or I shouldn't be teaching this, or some stuff like that.
That I don't really know as much as I should to be in this position. That I'm a fraud. It's basically
that you're a fraud. Yeah.
Feeling fraud, like I don't have the merit, I didn't do the work, like I did it, even though you have the degrees and even though you have all of the things that got you there, you feel like out of place, like, oh man, like if I slip up, they gonna find out that I'm not really who I say I am.
Yeah. And I found out in us prepping for the episode today, I found out that there's different kind of types of imposter syndrome, or ways that it can manifest for you. So a few of them we'll go over, and you can kind of see if it rings true for you. They're all a little bit similar as well. I feel like somebody who has a couple of these probably has, it's kind of like that. But one is like the perfectionist. So if you're a perfectionist, you're scared that somebody's gonna realize you don't have it all together, or you have such high standards set for yourself that you down yourself. So like as soon as you don't reach everything or get everything done, it's like, like you're more down on yourself about it because you feel like you're supposed to be perfect. So that could be a sign that you may be dealing with imposter syndrome.
And that's definitely one for me. It's like having these impossible standards that I set for myself sometimes, and when I fail to meet impossible standards, then I get upset and then beat myself up for it. Another one is being a natural genius. So we typically, when things come really easy to you, when all of a sudden they don't, you kind of fall apart because it's like, wait, I can do everything else.
Yeah, because everything is so easy to me. So I'm so frustrated if I can't get something immediately or if I can't get it to do what I want it to, because everything is usually kind of easy to me, I think. So I get that one for sure. Another one, this kind of goes again with the other ones, is the soloist. Also probably me. If you're somebody who you don't like asking for help, like you can do it, you want to be super independent. And I think a lot of that stems from fear that you don't want to be vulnerable and letting people know you don't know something or you don't know how to handle something. So you try to do everything yourself. So if you're a person who tries to do everything themselves, you may be dealing with imposter syndrome.
And just a quick note, you can't do everything by yourself. And I'm just preaching to myself also.
But you can do as much as you can, but you can't do it all.
Yeah, we're not islands. And then the expert, which is also right in line, is when your value or your worth comes from knowing something. And so whenever you don't have the answers, like coming from like having all the answers, when all of a sudden you don't, you feel like exposed, like you don't really know things. And when your value is derived from other things, like instead of just inherently who you are, then that facade kind of crumbles, which I think it sounds like an underlying theme in all of them.
Yeah. And to me, the biggest underlying theme is fear. It's about being afraid that people are going to think that you're not what you are, but that's really coming from you being afraid that you're not what you're saying you are. And it kind of just all goes back to remembering that you don't have all the answers and that nobody really does. So it's almost maybe like you're putting yourself on a pedestal kind of, but you're not even giving yourself the credit you deserve. So I think fear is a big part of it. What else kind of goes into imposter syndrome?
I think it's also worth and value. Like if
self-worth, self-esteem.
Yeah, like your self-esteem, your self-confidence, like self-love. Like if you have heard your whole life that like either by society or parents or whatever that like you're not worthy or you're not enough and all these things, and now you get put into these situations where you might have a lot of responsibility or a lot of people might look to you for something. If your whole life you've been told like you're not worthy or you're not good enough or you're stupid or whatever, now all of a sudden people are looking to you for things. Those are two very conflicting views. And I think that's also why it's a lot higher for women and people of color to show up with imposter syndromes, because society has shown that we don't matter as much sometimes, like on the scale, like when you're looking at women in the workplace or people of color, like being the first Black person at a job and that's never been there before, like it's only understandable that you would feel out of place.
I think there's something else I want to add to that. I don't think it's not so much necessarily all the time that you've grown up societally, people telling you you're not it, you're not good enough. Sometimes I think that, because even with me, right, like I can think about the fact that I had a great household. Both my parents, everybody was, pushing me, complimenting me, and sweet, kind. I've never had anybody tell me like I can't do something that I've said I wanted to do. But my issue more so lies in, well, I don't want to let those people down, and so I'm a perfectionist in that I don't want to not be what it seems like these people think I am. So everybody thinks I'm great and awesome and perfect. You don't want to let them even down. Like online, like, day to day, I deal with that too, where it's like people will hype me up, or I'll put something up that I did and people hype it up. And to me, I'm like, I hate that, because, and I know they're good things. So it's like, cool, thanks, but I hate it because that's not what I'm looking for. And I also hate it because I'm like, this is regular to me. Like some of this stuff is like, that doesn't mean anything. Like if you're on a panel, like, okay, there's a million panels people set up every day. You know what I mean? Like that's cool. But again, it's like, give yourself the credit. But there's also, I think it's a personal level of knowing like what things really are big deals and what things might not be. So it kind of makes you uncomfortable, or I guess it makes me uncomfortable when people celebrate every little thing. Cause I'm like, okay, y'all, it ain't all that.
I think I'm in alignment with you, except for like I did have those people building me up, but I also had people in my life who like told me I couldn't do things and that I wouldn't be things.
And to me, that's like movies to me, because I'm like,
oh,
why
no,
would somebody
really
do that? Like,
oh no, it really
teachers
happens.
being like, you'll never be shit. Like,
Bruh,
what are y'all talking about?
From school counselors,
my teachers gave me gifts and stuff. Like,
yeah, no, it's. I mean, I think it's very vast spectrums, but I was thinking overall on a societal level, when society shows you that women's lives matter less, that Black people's lives matter less, like when you look at that, like I think that, and also being the first in different things, I think that has a really big impact on people and can be very jarring. But personally, I think, and I just lost my train of thought. Dang, I had something good. If I remember it, I'll come back. But sorry. Apparently it wasn't that good. No, that's what it is. It's like, I recently hosted one of my friend's events. She had this amazing women's event about women in leadership and honing your skills and all these things. And I hosted, and she like called me and I couldn't answer. And she texted me. She was just like, hey, I was about to call you and tell you how great you were and how grateful I am for you. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. But I'm like, that's also very awkward for me. And I was like, why is this awkward for me? So I was talking to my therapist. And I was like, that sounds like a joke. So I was talking to my therapist.
Right, it does.
And my therapist was like, why? And I'm like, well, I mean, because I feel like it's just regular. Like, I talk a lot and I do these things. It just comes naturally. She's like, okay, but why can't she compliment you? I said, I didn't say she couldn't. It just makes me feel weird. She's like, why is it hard for you to receive compliments on things that are big deals to other people, but maybe not to you? And I mean, I feel like I was like, I feel like I'm just doing what I should be doing. And she's like, but yeah, but there's something deeper.
Yeah, I say, and that's not the imposter syndrome part, because I think that's okay to be like, okay, cool. Like, you know, thanks. You know, I appreciate that. I don't have to be hyped about that, because there's other things that I've done that may be way better. But if it's hard because you don't really believe it, I think that's the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, or hard because I feel like man, I know I could have done this part better, like holding myself to that standard. Yeah. And I think, I mean, it's a mix of all of that, but that was just a really recent example when I was like, man, like I was holding myself to this standard, which by all accounts, like everybody was like, oh, it's so great. But I'm still like,
And I think that's part of what it looks like. And we'll come back to that part. But I think part of what imposter syndrome looks like is if you tend to be a person where somebody says something to you or congratulates you, or wow, the presentation was great, or wow, you really know everything about social media, and you start to say yeah but, and then it's, well, this, or you know, the crowd didn't really know that much, or yeah, I just spoke at the White House because my friend works there and she, you know, had to look for somebody. Like, you're downplaying your own part that you played into getting where you are. You're downplaying the fact that you really do know a lot. You're downplaying the part that you've worked hard. And I think that's really what it looks like a lot of times, is downplaying it, especially when nobody asked you that, right? Nobody was like, oh, how did that happen? Or you just feel like you can't just take the credit, and you can't just say, yeah, like I'm nice like that. Like I'm nice as fuck. You know what I mean?
I like that.
You can't say that. And why? I think that's what it looks like a lot of the time.
And I think that's what it comes down to, is like, why? Like realizing, you know, we all have different reasons, but why is that a thing? I think for me, I've had where it feels like I'm a fraud, or I don't want to be found out. Like maybe I don't know as much as I think I do. Like I was struggling a lot with teaching mindfulness to people, because I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know that much for people. Like I haven't been studying that long. I don't know this. I don't know that. But then when I started teaching, I realized that, you know, even though in my head I'm not as far along as I should be or have all these things, like there's still something to be taught, even though I'm not on the level like I want to be. And that like I don't have to know everything, and that's okay.
So is it just recently in that space that you felt like an imposter, or felt like you've had imposter syndrome?
No, I was about to say, I feel like imposter syndrome for me, I really started noticing when I was working in engineering. Like being the youngest person in the room, the only woman, the only person of color. A lot of times, like I just was like,
right? Like, why am I here?
Yeah, why am I here? First of all,
now that you say that, I'm flashing back to like grad school. There were some times where I was like, I don't even know what I'm writing on this paper, but it sounds good as like some of I have published work, like published academic work that's like virtual systems of operational signals in the nano geotechnical transnational organizational, like that's what the titles sound like. And even I look back at it now, like obviously like I don't remember what the fuck I was writing about, but like talking about those things, presenting, like that paper that I just tried to remember that I can't think of what it actually was like submitted to some conference in Turkey, and like, but I was like, while I was doing it, I was like, what am I even talking about? Like,
why are people gonna read what I'm writing?
It just, I didn't understand what I was writing. Like, and also though, part of writing in academic writing is, it's almost like your thesis can be like I think this can be part of it. Like, it doesn't even have to be like really answering questions. So to me, I'm like it just, the whole thing feels like it's fake. Like, you're doing all of this work just to say one little thing that might happen or can be true. And I remember in grad school, just in classes and reporting and doing work, just being like, what am I don't know what I'm really talking about. I just know how to finesse like class. Like, I just know how to finesse class. And I remember feeling like that. And I would have one of my professors, shout out Professor Levinson. She was fire, but she's always like, oh, our student. And even when I graduated from grad school, and she would be like, call me back to present, or be like, hey, our class is doing this, if you want to come hang out, and let them talk to you. And I'm like, talk to me for what? Like, because I started a business after school and everything too, right? But starting a business is like, I went on irs.gov, got my EIN, and like tried to start figuring it out. So like at that time, especially, that's 6 years ago, like in no way did I feel like I was really like a big business owner, or I'm an entrepreneur, you know what I mean? To like, for people to think that that's so awesome. And I don't even feel like that now. I'm like, sometimes even more so, I'm like, golly, I'm still trying to figure this out. But people will want to bring you in, like, oh, let the kids talk to you. Or, even now, kids from my undergrad or from my grad school hit me up like, y'all want to talk to you about what you do. And I'll be like, girl, let me talk. What do you do? Like, are y'all hiring? That's what I would be wanting to say. But so there, I think there's a thin line between you being realistic, and I think it's important to not let people hype you, right? And like not get caught up in your ego, because I could easily be like, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner. And it's like, all right, girl, how much profit? Like, what's your net profit looking like? You know what I mean?
What's
like,
that bottom line?
Right, you breaking even or whatever. Like, or you're still struggling. And that's fine too, because that's what it looks like for a lot of people in the first few years, right? But I think it is a thin line between being realistic and then realizing like, all right, girl, but a lot of people look up to that you started it, or what you're doing, or what you've done so far, because I have done some really cool things with my work, even though it may not be all the time, but like I got a lot of cool things done, and I do know things. Like when I speak about things that I really know and like have some experience in. And so it's still giving yourself credit. But I think like how we always talk about with this podcast, you still want to keep it kind of realistic as well. So like there is a balance, I think, but you need to know. I think that is one of the main keys. If somebody says something to you, like, how do you respond? Like, are you really uncomfortable, or can you be like, thank you? Like, I've been working really hard, like, to get to this or to work on this, and I know I have a long way to go, but that means a lot to me, and I appreciate you recognizing what I'm doing.
And I was going to say that is the key indicator, how I realized that I actually had imposter syndrome, because like you said, I would start deflecting, like blaming everything else, like kind of downplaying stuff. And then I really was sitting with, why do I do that? And it's like, okay, well, because I have some deeper seated beliefs in myself about either not being worthy, not being good enough. Yeah, but I realized, like, why can't I take a compliment, or why do I get so uncomfortable? But and it's like taking a hard look at myself and then questioning, what are these root things that I'm holding on to? Yeah, that makes me feel like I'm not enough, or that I shouldn't be in this position, even though I worked damn hard to get here. Yeah, like where is it coming from?
And imposter syndrome, I feel, is connected a lot of times with work and things like that. But consider also, even when it comes to like love and people trying to express things to you, and you feel uncomfortable because you don't feel like you deserve that. You know what I mean? Like all of those things are connected to where you really need to give yourself more credit. You really need to recognize where you are, what you are, and give yourself credit for it, and not downplay it, because
you're the bomb.
I mean, yeah, hopefully like A, you're the bomb, but like B, you don't gain anything from that. Like, and then there's no moral like value or anything in that either, like playing it low and that whole be humble thing. And we're not saying walk around like you the shit and all that, but don't let people be humble you to the point where you use that as a guise to just really like push on your imposter syndrome.
Because you dimming your light is not inspiring or helping anybody else ever. Like that Marianne Williamson quote is not that we're afraid to shine. It's like or whatever. I screwed it up. But I'm like, hold on, I'm about to Google this.
Like, whatever.
It's our light. Like, but you want to shine so you can inspire other people. And you shining your light is by no means being haughty or too whatever, arrogant. It's not those things. It's just being confident in knowing who you are and what you've done, and kind of reflecting back on your past. Like that's like that, and that's okay. And they always joke that like humble bragging is something that people aren't good enough at, because how, if you don't talk about what you do, how do I know what you do? And all those things. And so we have to get more comfortable with owning who we are.
It'd be funny because people will hit me with like, oh, you flexing, or oh, that's a humble brag, when I be saying regular, well, stuff that I think is regular. So then I'm like, oh shit, like it does look like that, but like, no, that's a regular part of my life. Like,
yeah, but our regulars are not the same.
Yeah, our regular life just ain't the same. Like, if I wanted, there's a lot of things I've done that I have never told people, like, and I don't talk about because I just haven't. But like, some of the stuff I say ain't nothing. Like,
so
it ain't nothing.
Has it changed, like the way you felt about imposter syndrome, like when you first noticed it? I remember
first discovering or hearing about imposter syndrome for the first time, and I think that was sometime while I was still in DC, probably like 2013ish, 14 maybe, when I went to the Power Conference, the same place where I went to a workshop to learn about pricing yourself. And this is a story I might have told on here already before, where like I went to this workshop, changed everything. The next day is the day that I was like 10 times more. And the guy was like, that sounds fair. But part of that, I remember I learned about imposter syndrome, and I'd never heard that before in that way. And it's one of those things when people tell you what that is and what that looks like, you're like, damn, that's me. And I was like, damn, that's me.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, what is this? And I remember that. And I remember from that point kind of understanding how that's built into like your confidence. So that's a reflection of like your confidence in what you do, and how that really kind of just sets you up to fail moving forward if you are in a place where you're never accepting like that I'm good at this, or thank you, or the praise, or whatever. And it's not just praise either. But before that, I know I've been terrible with it. And I know I felt that all the time because I was constantly, you know, in a place where I'm trying to figure out, like, what am I even doing with this business and with all of that? Like, constantly, like, I don't belong here. I guess that's a part we haven't mentioned either. Like, I do not belong in this world. Like, somebody just give me something to do from 9 to 5 so I could be on Facebook all day at that time. God, I hate Facebook now. But like, you know what I mean? Like, it'd be like, this ain't for me really, you know? Yeah. And that's how I lived with that. And I think that over time, now I can recognize it. So I know when maybe my first instinct is to close up or be difficult or like block something that somebody's saying or whatever, but like I recognize it and I know what it is, and you know, like it's not the same. Like I can just kind of quickly flip that and process it.
Is it something that you've actively like worked on improving or thought through?
Maybe not just with the term imposter syndrome, but with my confidence overall. I believe I think more focusing on that, like how do I present myself in certain situations where I may typically downplay, or I may kind of let the other person like maneuver the whole thing, or you know, something like that. And just being aware, like I said. So maybe not like I don't remember spending a whole lot of time like looking up like how to defeat imposter syndrome. And I still have it now to a degree. Like I have all my friends who still tell me like, you're not giving yourself enough credit for this or that, or you know, they tell me that, and I can tell them like, yes, I am. Like I know I am great, and yet at the same time, my body language or maybe what I'm saying still doesn't reflect it all the time. And that's what they might be seeing and hearing. So in my mind, I might be like, yeah, I am. Like, I know I'm the shit or whatever. But does it sound like it? Does it look like it? Maybe not. And so that is still kind of letting you know, like, if people still kind of see that, like, girl, like, you're still not, you know, you're still not all the way there, then I know there's still something to work on.
Yeah. And I like to, like you mentioned your story about like getting payment. And I kind of want to go back to that because a lot of times we can talk about these things like very ethereal, like mindsets and all these things, but very like physically and tangibly, you not owning who you are and owning your greatness could be keeping you back from a higher paycheck, from a different position, from taking a leap into a relationship or into a business or something that you're very much capable of doing. And it's because you're not owning who you are and trusting that. And so I just wanted to go back because I think that's very important. And
again, and I don't know if this is devil's advocate or just like feeling like I have to throw the other side of that too, but there is also a big difference in owning who you are and being like, yeah, I can do this, I do this, versus you being that person who wants to Instagram and tweet all this extra stuff that you're not, you know what I mean? When you're trying to kind of make it look like you're doing a lot more than you are, that's also a different thing too. And so I don't think you need to do all that. And you shouldn't. Don't put yourself in a place where you're talking all big about stuff, and then when it comes down to it, you can't perform or you don't perform. Like, that's just you being a fraud for real.
I think a good check for that is like, why am I posting this? Like, literally, like thinking through, like, is
this real? Like,
yeah, is this real? But also, like, why am I? Is it to show people that I'm doing this event and things like this, or is it like, or is it, oh man, like I want them to think that I'm, like, I mean, just be real with yourself. Like, I think we come back to that a lot in episodes, but it's just being very self-aware, but also owning, like, if you are thinking of going for this promotion, but you keep talking yourself out of it, like, why? And like, why not just go for it and then get the feedback and learn? And if there are some areas you can grow, you can do that. But also seeing, like, where the good feedback is, and then owning that and realizing where that comes from. And I think you can, if you have some real friends and people in your life that you can get some honest feedback, you can ask them, like, hey, like, do you think that I, like, own, like, who I am? Like, you could ask people, like,
that is, I mean, that is real when you're really trying to, like, see how people perceive you and what it looks like. Because again, you may be thinking one thing, but everything you do may be showing the opposite. And I think that's something that we sometimes kind of do, like psyching ourselves out, just like how I can roll over in the morning and tweet like rise and grind, because I know that's like what I should be and like who I'm kind of like might be online, but then I can roll over and go back to sleep, and it's like, that's so phony.
Yeah, it's real,
but
fried.
It's easy to do that. It's easy to feel like you're playing a role, but you need to be legit. I think your words need to follow the action, essentially. Like, make sure your actions make sense so that anything you say, like, yes, I can go back and see that, and that's real. You are doing this, you are doing that, and so yes, you should own that and like be excited about that.
I would also say, like, I mean, you can hold your words for a little bit. Let your actions talk for you. Yeah. Like, you don't have to say much if your actions are speaking loudly.
I think that's very real. And then when people call you out on it, be like, yeah, you right. I am good.
And then we have a couple of tips. Like, if you notice it in yourself or friends and things that y'all are talking about, like, just little ways to kind of do self-checks and to progress through it and start to process. And I think the first one is just talking about it, like having that conversation. Like, if you notice it in a friend, or if you start to notice in yourself, like breaking that silence and realizing, like, you don't have to have guilt or shame around having these feelings. Like, they're very natural, but it's important to process so that you can be confident and feel good about who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah. And so breaking the silence about what, like, if I'm feeling like, man, I don't know if I should be doing this, I don't really belong here, I feel like I'm fake, just saying that to somebody.
Yeah, I would say talking to like a trusted friend or like a therapist, or even, you know what I'm saying, like somebody like that, like having that conversation to where you can bounce things off of, because a lot of times these feelings of not belonging or not knowing enough are coming from like beliefs that I'm not enough, or a self-worth, or like this perfectionist syndrome, like different things. And if you can talk through it with someone, it can help you process it and realize the truth. Like, oh, like, I actually do deserve this job. Like, I've worked really hard and I have all these things.
Yeah, I think being vulnerable is a big first step in moving forward with anything, because as soon as you put everything on the table, now you can actually start looking at the solutions and really like pinpointing what's going on. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah. And also, if you are struggling with like not feeling good about what you're doing or where you are, like, you can also create your own data set or your own foundation, in the sense of like looking at all of your successes and all your valuable qualities, like depending on what you're struggling with, so that you have some strong data about who you are and what you've physically done, like things that can't be debated. Like, I have a degree in this, I have this job, I successfully helped this project like increase profit by this much, like looking at the hard facts, so that whenever that little voice in your head starts, you can't do this, or you like, you can be like, actually data shows a little different. I
think that's also really good too, because it forces you to pay attention to pinpoint like these good things that you are doing, because I think sometimes it may become regular, like we said at the beginning, in your mind, to where you're not really thinking about it. But like, if you're really taking time to be like, all right, what's, the few things I did this week that were really awesome, or today, or whatever. Now, as people are saying things to you, it's like, like you're reinforcing like those things that you did. It's not just in and out, like when something bad happens, yes, we tend to fester on it. We tend to think about it and like kind of like sit with it for a while. But if you're doing this with the positives, now it's just a more positive feeling, and it's something that actually will feed you to move in a better way, not in a negative way.
Yeah. And owning those like unapologetically, like allowing yourself to feel good about it. I think another important one is like, well, this helps, but reframing those thoughts. So if you have this thought like, oh, I can't do this, or I don't belong here, like thinking through, okay, well, I think I can't do this because I haven't done X, Y, and Z, but I've done A, B, and C, and maybe I can go learn about this thing, and that would make me feel more comfortable to actually be here. Mm-hmm. And so just working on, it's like a constant like reframing until it just comes naturally.
Okay. I think another thing that works when you're feeling imposter syndrome is developing a new response to failure. And when you make mistakes. And one thing that I like to say, I said that as if I ever said this before. one thing that I think about to myself, right? I call them every week and tell them. No, but I'm a big fan of the fact that you should make mistakes. And I would encourage people, make mistakes. Just don't make the same mistakes.
Ooh, that's a word.
Always be making new mistakes, though. Like, go at it. Otherwise, you're just going in a circle. But failure is that opportunity for you to really, like, assess. So it's not the time for you to say, oh, man, I'm an imposter just because I messed up something or, you know, something didn't work out. That doesn't mean that you don't belong there. That doesn't mean that you're not good at what you do. It just means that you had an issue or that, you know, you had that one obstacle or fall down or whatever that now you can flip and learn from to be even better at what you're doing. So always kind of thinking about it in that way, that like you should be making mistakes, but now it's like, what are you going to get from that? What did you learn from that?
Yeah. And I was about to mess up another quote. I'm just going to keep going. Dang, I'm turning into somebody
quote messer upper today.
Exactly. Dang. Another one is writing the rules. And when I say that, it's like in my head, good God. In my head, like I should always know what to do and I should always have the right answers and I should always be these things, like looking at these arbitrary rules that you've set in your life, either consciously or subconsciously, and kind of questioning them. That allows for more flexibility to either make a mistake or to grow or to create a new train of thought for yourself. And so just looking at these things that we don't ever say out loud, but that we hold true to ourselves. Like, so for mine, I don't like messing up because I feel like I should always know what to do and I should always do these things. But that puts an inordinate amount of pressure on myself to always be perfect. And child, that stuff is exhausting.
Yeah. And you can visualize yourself being the winner. You can visualize yourself getting that award. You can visualize yourself getting that promotion or running that crazy successful business. Because what does it help you to sit there visualizing, what if they find me out? Or when they visualize, or if you visualize like, well, if they realize I don't know what I'm talking about and then they don't want to be my client anymore. Like, there's no point in thinking that way when you could just think the other way. And I think part of visualizing that success helps you to, on a daily, then be on top of your research, on top of your work, and moving forward in a way to where you're kind of fulfilling that, what you're expecting to happen.
Yeah. And I think it's important to be kind to yourself along the way. I come back to self-care and self-love a lot, but that's really what it is. Like, if you're constantly... like, you can't work your way out of imposter syndrome. The harder you work, like, that's not the only way to do it. It's like constantly changing your thought process, trying different things, and then being kind to yourself if you do, quote unquote, mess up or whatever along the way. It's just giving yourself space to explore and discover and to be you and to take care of you and to learn what that means.
The last tip I have is just rewarding yourself, remembering that when you do good things, pat yourself on the back, give yourself your own props. Like, it doesn't have to be about waiting for somebody to say something to you in the first place, but recognize those things that you are doing as they're happening and let yourself celebrate that.
Yeah. And if you, like, we want to know how you guys experience imposter syndrome. If you've experienced it at all, like, what does that look like for you? What are some ways that you've dealt with it? Screenshot at Carlie's Couch on Instagram and Twitter. Let us know that you're listening, and also just sharing your stories. We would love to hear them, and then also share with others. Because I think it's really important. It's one of these things that, I mean, I've heard it more and more recently, but that until now, not a lot of people have talked about, but I feel like a lot of people suffer with it.
Yeah, I think maybe we talk about, like, not being confident or getting your esteem up and things like that. But I think the key part about imposter syndrome is really, like, you're scared about people figuring this out. Like, you really think you don't belong there. And it's like, well, why are you here? Why are you in this position then? How have you gotten as far as you've gotten? It's not all of the external factors. It really is like what you've been doing. And so it really is about like owning your life. Like it's almost like you're putting yourself in the back seat of your own life when you're kind of, you know, dealing with imposter syndrome, because you're not giving yourself your power. You're not walking in the power that you really have within yourself, because you're not even admitting it. So imagine like now, if you really own that and like you really give yourself that power, how much more you can even do and how much further you can even go.
And how beautiful that can be.
Yeah.
Own your power. Choose you. Choose happiness. All of those things.
Note that this week, if somebody compliments you or if something happens and you notice the first thing your thoughts go to is, oh, well, you know, that was nothing, or oh yeah, they helped me with this or that. Like, catch that. Like, for real, think about it this week and try to catch it. Just if anything, to be aware of it, I think.
Yeah, and you don't have to do anything grand. You can just say thank you. Just don't negate it.
Question of the week. Carlie, when you worry, what are you choosing not to see?
When I worry, I'm choosing not to see the possibilities. The good possibilities. I heard that worry is a down payment on something that might not ever happen. And so I'm choosing not to see the positive side of things. I'm choosing not to see the great things in my life and the track record that has happened thus far. And I'm choosing not to see like through joy and love, because I feel like worry is fear and a lot of anxiety. And when you're not looking through love, you're seeing things through fear. So that's what I see. So I'll go with possibility.
I agree with all of that. And I'll take it a different direction for my answer. When I worry, I'm choosing not to see the present, and I'm choosing not to appreciate the right now, and that I'm here and that I'm fine, and that's what it's going to continue to be. Like, everything's always worked out. So it's kind of just like not appreciating like what you've already kind of gone through and where you are right now, because you're looking into the future about something you think may happen or whatever that you don't even know, will happen, or you are worried about how something will solve itself. And sometimes that's just not where your focus needs to be.
Yeah, because if it's not in the present, then how are you enjoying life?
You're kind of just moseying through this thing.
That's probably the most country I've heard you be in a long time.
Mosey. Damn, is that country? That is kind of country.
Dog, moseying is definitely
How do you even spell moseying?
Mosey, I think.
E-Y? Mosey.
Mosey.
Wow. All right then, y'all. So no, but I've never had an accent though. So first of all, I can't even do that right.
I didn't think I had an accent.
Okay, we're not gonna have that conversation again. I didn't even think I had an accent.
That's beyond me.
Right. I am befuddled. Guys, you are not imposters. You're awesome. Thank you for listening once again.
Sign up for our newsletter,
please. If you got the resource list, wait, we talked about that this time. I'll cut that out. Get the resource list and let us know how you like that and what you think about it. And please share the podcast with others so that we can get other people on this info.
Bye.
Bye.